Welcome everyone back to Spoiler Warning featuring myself, Tom Colohue. We are now live both on YouTube and on TikTok as well, and we have plenty to talk about today. We are going to return to the hopefully more laid back and relaxed and slower paced version of Spoiler Warning, but at the same time, unfortunately, I do have to start hitting the nail pretty hard because we have quite a lot to get through, so it's a mix of a few things. Now, I won't read through all of the headlines, some of them are just notes, but we'll start with some concerns about Brock Lesnar. The WWE locker room, I'm going to name quite a few people who are very unhappy with this situation. We've also got a little bit about Seth's faction and plans involving Seth and Roman Reigns, plus plans involving Seth Rollins and Becky Lynch, and someone, a wrestler, who was fully aware that Seth Rollins was not actually injured. We're going to talk about Rusev and what WWE are hoping to achieve there, as well as talking about Charlotte Flair and Alexa Bliss. We've got a bit of an update on Liv Morgan that I know some people will find interesting. A bit of an update on Austin Theory as well as something on how the ESPN deal came together, Netflix's reaction to it, and, in fact, some concerns about Netflix and the WWE, particularly the fact that right now they are in the usual lull and Netflix are not reacting particularly well to it. So, if you are just joining the show, please remember on YouTube, hit that thumbs up. We have 15 likes already, 66 people here, a lovely, good start, and plenty of people already active in the chat. So be sure to say hi to each other, be sure to hit thumbs up as we get to our first piece of news. There are some obvious names and some less than obvious names that are unhappy with the return of Brock Lesnar. To start out, Brock Lesnar's return was not made publicly known to many backstage in WWE, and that includes the vast majority of the wrestlers themselves. The women's locker room in particular were not made aware, and many of them are in positions where they absolutely should have been made aware. Some of them actually sit in creative meetings at the moment, and they were as shocked as anyone else is. In fact, overall, the women's locker room is said to be fairly united in not enjoying the return of Brock Lesnar. But it's not just the women who are annoyed here. There are other names who have put their head up and essentially represented others around them. Interestingly, they are typically rivals, but when it comes to dealing with management, there are two individuals backstage who've been representing the views of wrestlers more than any others. Those are CM Punk and Seth Rollins. The rivals as they were, but when it comes to defending the rights of the locker room, who cannot necessarily speak for themselves, Punk and Rollins stand united, and both have expressed their concerns about the return of Brock Lesnar. From the WWE's point of view, as far as they are concerned, there is no legal implications or issues with the return of Brock Lesnar. They are confident that there will be no repercussions. They are confident that they have cleared anything. And in addition to that, in order to defend themselves in advance, because nothing says we're innocent like defending yourself in advance, Michael Cole was told to go on WWE Raw and intentionally give a timeline for Brock Lesnar's return by WWE's legal team to avoid any potential allegations that they were planning to bring him back while Janelle Grant was actively attempting to add litigation against him. This is the situation with Brock Lesnar. Nick Khan signed off on his return, John Cena requested his return, and Triple H has planned creative for his return. It is believed to be the last year of his deal. After a long time out, he was approached and said he was interested after a discussion with Vince McMahon. What is next for Brock Lesnar is essentially very limited dates, but I would expect to see him tonight. We've got plenty more that we are going to be discussing, but that's our first 5 minutes. I'm going to catch up with the chat, make sure we're all caught up. 77 people here now, 21 likes, and that does tell you the impact of each like and the impact of each comment. So please do keep that going. So, who have I not said hi to? Sledgehammer, welcome. Cal says, hey Tom, really angry Brock Lesnar is back. It's a disservice to all those amazing women who perform every week, and it's also a disservice to that brave woman, Janelle Grant. WWE and TKO should be ashamed. Strong words and fairly put. Cal says, will we see the Wyatt 6 tonight? I suspect we will, yes. Cal is also saying, who do you think is next for Cody and Tiffany Stratton? Hard to say. Both of them got conclusive wins, meaning that they should be moving on to some brand new names. I would suggest that Drew McIntyre seems the obvious choice for Cody, an easy step sideways into a feud there. Whereas for Tiffany Stratton, it's a little harder to immediately pick out a name. Maybe someone we haven't really seen for a while would be involved there. Welcome Marcel, welcome Joe, welcome Bailey as well. Paul says Jonathan Gresham revealed he suffered 2 strokes earlier last week, forcing him to take an immediate hiatus from in-ring competition. Wrestling takes a toll on people, and it becomes more and more apparent as time goes on. Roy says Jake Hager announces retirement from wrestling. He started his own trucking company, appeared on the Rule Breakers with Soraya podcast. Fair enough. He wasn't necessarily particularly well received by wrestling fans. It sounds like he's sort of taken the hint on this one. And credit to him. Sean says, hello, Tom. Welcome, Sean. And Sid says, Austin Theory has been removed from WWE's internal active roster. This is a report from PWInsider. There will be more on this one. Aaron Talks Wrestling has asked for any news on Jericho's contract. Jericho's contract is ironclad because of his position with the company. He is very well received and very well viewed. And at this point in time, there is no intention of him leaving the company. AEW are confident that they'll be able to keep him as long as they wish to. Ray, yes, Bret Hart did indeed knock Gunter's in-ring style. I think, unfortunately, Bret Hart is no longer up to date with wrestling. Jordan says a very good evening to you, sir, and to everyone in the chat. Welcome, Jordan. Irish says, my guy Tom, welcome, Irish. And Nick says, chat rate, which I always appreciate. As I says, any truth to Karrion Kross offer? Only what I've already reported. Aaron says, where's Rey Mysterio? Still currently injured and leaving room for his son to surpass him, essentially. Dan says, you've said Asuka is sticking to the tag division, but do you think her repeated on-screen comments about Rhea is hinting at a turn against Io Rhea? Yeah. That would then result in an Io and Rhea team versus Kabuki Warriors, which I think would be good for everyone involved. Rhea does need new opponents. She really does. Welcome, Psycho. Welcome, Juan. Hello, Michael. Good to see you. Ishii says, hello, Tom. Hope you're okay. Doing well, thank you, Ishii. I definitely think, Ishii, you should be in a very good place at the moment because you always wanted as much Wyatt 6 as possible. I gave you as much as I could, and thankfully, I'd imagine you're very happy with the results now. Aaron says, do you like Brock? No. Connecting People says, tuning in from Chicago. Welcome. Good to see you. I know you're popping up all over the place with your little border. I quite like your work. Daniel Berry says, hey everyone, happy Friday. Welcome, Daniel Berry. Sean says, when speaking to Ariel Hawani, Paul Heyman said there were discussions of a third match between Cody Rhodes and Roman Reigns at WrestleMania 41. I have touched on that previously. It did not come to fruition. Aaron says, out of town at the moment. I have the time to watch. Hope everyone is doing well. Hope you're having a great time, Aaron. Wherever you are, hope you're having a great time. Maggie says, good for Punk and Seth. I wholeheartedly agree. Sean says, via Adam's Apple, John Cena denied that he requested to face Brock Lesnar. Interesting, because Triple H outright said that John Cena requested to face Brock Lesnar, and I can state categorically that he was on Cena's list. Azza, I don't know what you're referring to there. You may be bringing in a rumour that you haven't sourced. Not one I'm aware of. Hello, Kelly. Hope you're doing good. Rickon says, is there any truth to the MVP rumour? Apparently he's having backstage issues in AEW. I don't have the sources to be able to confirm that. All I can say is that MVP wasn't necessarily the most popular in WWE for the way that he essentially defended the... what are they called? What do we call them? Hurt Business. For the way that he defended the Hurt Business. It was just one of those things where he considered them powerful, too powerful to ignore, and he generally got his way. This made some people upset who had to essentially be buried by them. Retribution, for example. Douglas Martinez, thank you kindly for following. I appreciate that. And welcome to the show. Just says Drew McIntyre. Well, yes. Yes. Only thing I can really say on that one, yes. Carl says, did you see Becky and Nikki Bella's segment? Becky cooked her. More on that shortly. DJ says... Oh, sorry, I've lost track of it. Catching up. DJ says, Rhea on Raw or SmackDown when the next draft does happen. I would move her over, personally. Entertainment says, hopefully Bianca is next for Tiffy, which I think is a good shout as well. And Maggie is wishing John Gresham a speedy recovery. Cal, no cross news at this point in time. I think I've been able to report everything that there is to report. Juan says, hey Tom, AEW Dynamite didn't really have a good show and they did 711,000 viewers. Do you think it was a Lesnar return effect? No, I think in general, while they didn't necessarily have a good show, they have been consistent and their ratings are rising because of that. The fact that they're no longer considered competition has, in my eyes, been a good thing for them. Maggie says, poor Gunter, what did he do to Bret Hart? Nothing. And he won't be disturbed by this. Gunter, in the time that I've met and interviewed him, could not care less about the opinions of others. Ladari says, I hope Jimmy Uso will win the United States Championship. There is still an opportunity there. Ray says, I've been a Natalya fan for a long time. I want to see her return to the ring in WWE and have matches. There was certainly a tease of that this week on Raw, though it has not come to fruition. Bad says, did you see Alexa's reference date on... Sorry, but I don't fully understand what you're saying there. Can you clarify? No worries, is she? Not a worry. Can't blame you, Maggie. Cannot blame you. Kelly says, I agree. Rhea needs a new storyline and opponents and needs to be away from title shots for a bit. We have other women that need the opportunity. Yes. I would say carefully, Charlotte is Rhea is becoming in danger of replacing Charlotte Flair as the person who's just too involved. It could be that maybe she gets a bit of time away. Maybe it could be a swap over to the other side. Maybe, much like we've seen for the past few months, she could be in and around championships, but losing. And I would say the storyline where she simply cannot be Io Sky is a good one. Genuinely a good one that I really enjoy. I think that's a great storyline that keeps both of them away from the championship and protects the championship by doing that. Ooh. Dominic says, hi Tom, is there anything left for Nakamura? Not a thing. Shaitan says, do you have any news about Becky Lynch's upcoming acting project apart from comedy show Movers? Not at this point. She's still going on auditions. She's still trying to make herself available between a number of different areas. There are offers on the table that the WWE are currently considering. Movers is the first one to be successful. Cal says CM Punk does seem the dad of the WWE now, and he takes great pride in that. Mike Brand says some brave folks to reject Brock. That guy is not human. There are people backstage in WWE who are more than capable of beating him up. There are not many, but there are some. Cal says, did you see Jelly Roll said in the Cody Rhodes podcast that he asked to lose? I didn't see that, but does not surprise me. Samuel says, Gunter doesn't give a damn about celebrities wanting to be in WWE. He does not. He doesn't give a damn about a lot. He's a very chill guy. And Samuel also thinks that Nakamura should join TNA. I suspect he'll go back to New Japan myself and wrap it up in a similar style to Hiroki Goto. As I says, people should watch the Paul Heyman interview of Ari Emanuel. It was incredible. I've seen snippets of it, and Heyman gets real in-depth on this. Noob says, hello, Mr. Colohue. How are you doing today? Doing very well, thank you, Noob. Welcome to the show. We've just hit 100 people watching at once. Only 32 likes so far. If you're able to, please remember to hit that thumbs up. If we can get up to, say, 50 likes, we'll see a boost of maybe 20 viewers. They might be brand new viewers who've never seen what we do here, thus potentially new subscribers, new followers, and people who just want to check out what we're doing here. So please do remember, if you haven't already, to hit that thumbs up. As it says, will we see Cross on WWE TV again? Only if he signs the deal that's being offered to him. Sean suggests Candice LeRae versus Tiffany, which I think is a very good shout. She says, everyone watch Tom. He said Karrion has got an offer on the table. Dave Meltzer said Karrion Kross contract is offered. It's funny. Someone is watching. Spoiler warning. Yeah, that does happen sometimes. It does happen. It's nice to have confirmation. Cal says AEW's product has been good this year. Haven't seen much, but what I have seen, I have enjoyed. Kelly says, I don't know if it is him or if he is a slave to TKO and their wants. Yes, Kelly, I don't fully know how the crowns work. Well, congratulations. I'm not going to, Douglas. I have other things to talk about. Maggie says Heyman was always going to defend Lesnar. They made a lot of money together when Heyman was his manager. All about the money. Cal says Gunther's the best wrestler in the world. He's got haters. It's bound to happen. As I said, is there a concern with Naomi's promo skills? No, there was. However, since turning heel, her promos have been incredibly well received. Incredibly well received. VTP says, is Brock working Clash in Paris? It seems like they are building towards a Brock versus Cena match. I would suggest Clash in Paris would be where it would take place. Cal says, Undertaker's podcast with Gunther is so funny. It's just an hour of Michelle McCool telling Gunther how much Undertaker loves him and adores him. Nobody has actually pushed Gunther more than The Undertaker. And I include Gunther in that. Gunther himself is very happy with his position and doesn't really push for more. It's people like The Undertaker, whenever he's there, that Gunther guy. Cal says, I'd give Rhea a push for the IC title. Kelly says, I agree, Tom. I loved Rhea, but it's getting tiresome. Dominic, the Nick and Tom's Intercontinental Adventure has been over for more than a year and a half now. I simply was unable to commit to the schedule that we were keeping while also doing these shows and spending time with my family. I made a choice. I stand by it. And Nick, from what I can tell, has been popping up on the PWTorch YouTube. And I'm sure if you check out his name, you will find him there. It says, Leon Slater said in the podcast, TNA will get their titles back very soon. Juan says, thank you, Tom. I was only asking because apparently some people that I know personally told me that the Brock Lesnar return made them return to AEW this past Wednesday. There are a couple of people who've mentioned that in this chat, that it simply turned them off WWE. I'm not going to blame them for that. Rocky says, what is next for Charlotte and Alexa? New challengers. They need a few new opponents, though Judgment Day is likely to still orbit them to a capacity. Chatan says, who is considered the biggest women's star among Becky, Rhea and Charlotte by WWE? Becky Lynch. Becky Lynch is firmly considered the top woman in the company. Rick says, I wonder if CM Punk confronts Brock backstage. It would be bad for Punk, but if anyone would do it, it'll be Punk. Gunther wants to work with Brock Lesnar, so it won't be him. Kelly says, I don't think Rhea should go after any titles at the moment, maybe in a couple of months, but right now she needs a vacation or something to refresh her character. Cal says, oh, here we go, I've lost you guys again. It's like TNA, Tom, when they were just that other cool wrestling show, they did well. No one can compete with WWE, and trying to do so is damaging and expensive. Cal also thinks Shinsuke goes to AEW. Ray is also saying, Leon Slater said he would like an X Division title match against AJ Styles. Everyone wants to work with AJ Styles, and I'm not going to blame them for that. And Cal says also, Triple H gaslighting the fans. They were chanting, let's go Cross. He said you got Brock. It's utterly shameful. He was trying to kayfabe it. I'm sure there'll be a backlash. You don't need to find things to say, Kelly. I mean, you can just chat. I wouldn't worry too much about a crown, don't worry. I don't even really know how it works. Matteo, welcome. Cal says, I think we see Nikki Cross versus Candice versus B-Fab. I don't think we'll get there. I think that was just for TLC. Shaitan says, do you think Becky is gradually moving towards a Hollywood career after WWE retirement? And what is your take on how successful a Hollywood career could be? Yes and no. She enjoys acting. However, I would say her first love is still wrestling, and she does have a full-time contract. It's not limited date, though there are clauses in it that allow her to go and work elsewhere. Sean says, via The Observer, those in Saudi Arabia believe they'll host WrestleMania in 2027 and they want The Rock to headline the event. It will not be up to WWE. Noob says, can EO Sky get a new storyline and get away from title opportunities? Yes, they're working on that at the moment. As I says, what's the plan with ID talent transition? Essentially, once they get to a level that WWE is happy with, they'll start appearing more in NXT and then go from there. Same as anything else, with just extra steps. Cal says, do you see Stephanie Vaquer beating Naomi? I think next Mania we see Stephanie Vaquer versus Rhea Ripley at Mania. I'm not sure. I'm really not. Stephanie Vaquer has got a lot of fans in WWE. She's doing extremely well. The plan was Vaquer versus Lynch at WrestleMania. We'll see what's happening. Maggie says it's the best Naomi she's seen in years. Bad says, actually in the book of Uncle Howdy on one page, he's written about any female will opening the door, and on that downside he's written the date of Alexa and Uncle Howdy's first segment date. And that's great and all, however, that's not the character he is anymore. We are now looking at a completely different character. Ray says, who would you bring back to WWE TV that's not been on TV for ages? Hard to say. There's a lot of people that are very talented, but typically they leave for a reason. It's Samoa Joe, but typically they leave for a reason. Bismo says, hey Tom, hope you're feeling better. Was late to the stream, rewind to see the beginning. Thank you, Bismo. Appreciate people who do that. Cal says, I was watching a video from months ago and Becky said Ronda Rousey couldn't wrestle and she disrespected wrestling. Becky Lynch, after a while, stopped pulling punches. Sai says, hey Tom and chat, welcome Sai. And Psycho says, was watching from the start but have to go for now. We'll watch what I missed later. Appreciate you, Psycho. Good to see you. Cal says, having Evolution and Brock's return the same year is some sick joke. It does seem more like an apology in advance now, doesn't it? It does, doesn't it? Eric says, good evening, Tom. How you doing? I see Bianca Belair dethroning Tiffany Stratton, and Tiffany Stratton goes back down to the United States Championship division against Julia. I don't think that would be a bad spot for anyone involved. I really don't. Tiffany Stratton has had a great run as a champion. If you move her down a step, that will only get people more behind her in my eyes. Bailey says Saudi Arabia does not have a facility capable of hosting Mania, and there would not be enough visiting fans to support the entire weekend. Not an unfair comment. Kelly says, hopefully by SummerSlam 26, my girl Stephanie will be champion. Sean says, I'd like to see Alexa and Charlotte take on challenges from NXT. Maggie says, I wouldn't say no. More Nikki Cross, my Scottish compadre. She's awesome when they let her be Nikki. Do you remember when she was almost a superhero? That was bad. That was bad. Appreciate all the likes, by the way, Sarah. Nice. Where were we? Rickan says, do you see WWE signing Zilla Fatu in the future? I will answer the exact same way I've always answered. If he becomes available, WWE will be interested. Chatan says, is Nikki versus Becky happening at Clash in Paris? I'm not sure on that one. There will only be 5 or 6 matches. There will be rotations between it. Roy says, will Bad Bunny be returning to the WWE in the future? Both sides are very happy with the idea of that happening. Carl says, I always talk about the phase of the Wyatt Six. This is the phase of the darkness. They don't seem about allowing those to repent. They will make anyone pay for crossing them. Hard to say, because the darkness isn't really a thing with the Wyatt Six anymore. Again, they're brand new characters now. As it says, they really need to start building Fatu's faction slowly. Now is the time at which they will be beginning. Maggie says, love Samoa Joe, but he suffered a lot of serious injuries in his career. Yes, and that is one of the reasons he is unlikely to return to WWE. Tony says, will Alexa ever turn on Charlotte Flair? They've only just become a tag team. I wouldn't be pushing for it. Wheelchair Gamer says, when WWE goes to ESPN, where do we find WWE Library? Interesting question. I would imagine there is an ESPN live service that will allow that to happen. Kelly says, I really hope to see Stephanie as IC champion soon. Cal says, Tiffy's a star. She's 14-0 in 2025. And to be clear, it was a very decisive victory over Jade Cargill, someone they've been pushing hard. Ray says, is John Cena a babyface now? Yes, because he's facing Brock Lesnar, and there ain't nobody going to cheer for Brock Lesnar. Who knows what's good for them. Mike says, now the Wyatts have tag team gold, will Row and go after the US Championship? At this point in time, their entire focus is on the tag division. Carl says, could you ever see Mercedes Money returning to WWE? Yes, if she's allowed to be called Mercedes Money. You go for it, Kelly, you go for it. Roy Farmer took it. Maggie says, Tom, yes, I hated the superhero for Nikki. Very lazy booking. Cal says the superhero is Nikki's favourite character other than this one. And says, WWE ruined John Cena's last year. This has been horrendous. What a mess. I would argue that The Rock ruined John Cena's last year. Chatan says, do you know about the duration of Becky's current contract and the salary she's receiving? Salary? No, absolutely not. Contract, it was looking to be about 3 years. I can't give you a number. Ray says, lots of people are saying they hate the Jade Cargill match at SummerSlam. They hate Jade Cargill wrestling in that match. Jade Cargill did absolutely fine. There were no problems in that match. The only real issue is that it was relatively short. Thank you, Wheelchair Gamer, for following on the TikTok side. Cal says, I do think WWE don't think Jade's ready. SummerSlam proved that, in my opinion. She's a future star, but it's going to take time. Kusa say, Tom, what's your thoughts on Zack Sabre Jr.'s World Championship run so far? It means I get to watch more of Zack Sabre Jr., so I'm a happy, happy boy. Ashley says, NXT PLEs aren't part of the ESPN deal. Do you have an idea or opinion where they'll end up? Bidding has already started for them. Kelly says, I don't know how I feel about the Wyatt's new characters. I like them darker and more sinister. I hope they do something more with Nikki, Howdy and Rowan, but I love the run Gacy and Dexter are getting. At the moment, it's just about establishing them back in front of the cameras. After that, we'll see where they go. Welcome, WrestleFacts. Good to see you. So, next piece of news is as regards Seth Rollins and future plans for him. Seth's faction is still being built around Roman Reigns, while there is a clear focus right now on LA Knight and in fact on CM Punk. Seth versus Roman is still on the agenda and still what they are pushing towards. In fact, you can see on Raw not only the arrival of Roman Reigns and how he was used, but also Paul Heyman actively building towards a Seth Rollins versus Roman Reigns match. There are now reports out there that Roman Reigns will be wrestling at Clash at Paris. However, those reports are based on expected filming for Street Fighter starting after Clash. He did take a hell of a lot of tsunamis, which suggests he's being written out instead. WWE are actively building towards a Roman versus Seth match, but I think at this point we're more likely to see that at the Royal Rumble rather than at WrestleMania. I'm told Reigns is not currently expected as a Royal Rumble winner, and I will be touching on shortly who I expect to win the Royal Rumble now. As regards the Rollins and Lynch power couple, you'll have heard it referred to during Becky Lynch's promo. We have previously seen Seth Rollins and Becky Lynch paired up by the WWE simply because they got married and it became a big deal. However, on this occasion, both Seth Rollins and Becky Lynch are directly involved in the creative for anything that involves them. So there is an attempt by both sides to recognize each other, not just as wrestlers, but as champions. And we are seeing that play out. Sticking with that particular faction, there's a couple more pieces I do want to cover. Bron Breakker was wearing a knee brace underneath his clothing, and on a couple of occasions he did struggle when it came to some of the moves he was required to do. You could see him, for example, squatting down in the ring during Monday Night Raw. The injury is not believed to be serious, but the WWE are taking precautions, essentially telling him, you're going to skip a couple of matches and don't get up to speed. Whether or not he listens is up to him. Last part on this section, I can confirm that LA Knight was fully aware from day one that Seth Rollins' injury was not real. He was also assured that it would result in a World Heavyweight Championship match for him, which of course we saw on Raw this week. There is talk of LA Knight and CM Punk versus Seth Rollins and Bronson Reed. There is talk of a few combinations over the next few weeks. LA Knight is not being forgotten, even though he's not necessarily being considered a big name anymore. CM Punk is of the opinion that LA Knight is very talented and very eager, and CM Punk would like to work with him very similarly to how John Cena did a couple of months ago. I say a couple of months, about a year ago now, let's be fair. Rocky says, I'm too much confused about the Wyatt's character and storyline. Can you explain something about their storyline and character, heel or face? I've been able to share as much details as you will find out there. Just search this particular channel on YouTube for Wyatt 6 Marvel, because I compare them to the Marvel Cinematic Universe and give a lot of details about what their plans were at that time and what the 6 want to build towards. Cal says, I think Alexa will be the one to turn. Just paired up, guys. Says also, how good are Gacy and Loomis? They are amazing. Shaitan says, hi Tom, according to you, who is the highest paid women's wrestler? Well, it's not according to me. It's not according to me. It was Ronda Rousey. I believe at this point it is Becky Lynch. Kelly says, Becky's promo was awesome. She cooked Nikki. I don't care for Nikki, so it was awesome. Lucas Brown says, any Liv Morgan injury update? I do have an update on Liv Morgan. It will be coming shortly as we get to it. Eric says, Punk wins the Rumble, goes against Seth. Roman will face Braun Breaker at Mania. Billy says, are you a fan of Becky's new theme song? Not really. We'll get to that. Matter says, Dom and Stephanie for the Rumble winners, please and thank you. Cal says, apparently Motor City Machine Guns versus the MFT tonight. Are we getting Wyatt versus Solo's group soon? There is plenty of time. I have mentioned that there was a plan for the Wyatt 6 versus Solo, Sikoa and family. The family is not quite complete yet. Maggie says, I want my real Tribal Chief back, not this diminished version of him. Nobody would have stolen the real Tribal Chief's shoes and lived to tell the tale. Cal says, to be honest, everything Bloodline is exhausting and boring now. Kelly also says, I don't care for Bloodline, MFT, whatever it is, Solo and the Tongas are doing. Erin says, I'm in Montreal for an event that starts nearby on Sunday and didn't even know SmackDown was here. How are you missing that? That's an opportunity right there. Erin says, I'm not going to go due to ticket prices, but it was interesting to find out. Kelly says, I liked Solo better when he was quiet and just stood there. A lot of people did. It's a popular opinion. Cal says, did you see Isak is training alone, is very unhappy. I think you'll get him soon. So do I. He's making it happen for us. Ashley says, Tom, have you heard about any advertisers upset about Brock's return? Not as of yet. These things don't tend to happen quickly. They don't happen quickly. So I'm waiting for a bit more information. I'm chasing this one because I'm eager to know how people are reacting to Brock's return, especially after the whole, accused of asking for P video. It's a lot going on. There's a lot going on. Cal says, imagine Solo being freaked out by the Wyatt 6. Christopher Leclerc suggests Roxanne Perez and CM Punk win next year's Royal Rumble. Rohit says, you were 100% right when you said Alexa will return as Lexi Kaufman character, her own character, but waiting for her heel character. That's essentially where we are, yes. Matter says, I've liked Solo since the tickets thing. Also, he's apparently got a lovely singing voice. Kelly says, I never thought I'd be rooting for Dominic, but he won me over. I can't blame you. I never thought I'd be in that position, but yeah, he's a fantastic heel. Cal says, are you ready for the Rumble, Tom, where every show you get asked if The Rock and AJ Lee will return? I'm not ready for that, however, it happens every year, so. Autumn says, Joe Gacy is very good in the ring. I'm hoping he'll be a breakout star from the Wyatts. Shaitan says, do you know why the Women's IC Championship is being treated as the biggest championship in the women's division over the World Championships? Easy. Becky Lynch. WrestleFact suggests Sami Zayn has to be the only candidate to win the 2026 Royal Rumble. Thank you, Alex, for following on the TikTok side. Appreciate you. Q43 says, I remember you saying there is concerns about Kylie Ray being called up. Is that still there? Yes, it is. Ray says, who will Jacob Fatu face next? He has unfinished business with Solo Sikoa, I'm sure. Cal says, if Alexa joins the Wyatts, will she be the Firefly Funhouse Alexa? No. And Cal thinks that Paige will return at the Rumble. Rickham would like to see Brock versus Jacob. That is a match that's been discussed. Alex says, how did you feel about Becky's theme song change? I felt it was unnecessary and painful. Juan says, hey Tom, if you believe I know you believe Karrion Kross potentially might go to TNA. Do you believe AEW is an option too? Killer Kross versus MJF would be great. I've not heard anything about AEW interest. That doesn't mean there isn't any. It just means I haven't heard any. Kelly says, if I ever start rooting for Logan Paul, it's not me, it's an imposter. But you may have one day said that about Dominic. Cal says, did you see Paige on Chris Van Vliet? She was so happy when she got cleared to wrestle so she could finally prove to Mercedes Money she did nothing wrong. Obviously, Money gets hate for injuring her. I did speak about the fact that as soon as she was cleared, she wanted to wrestle Mercedes Money. That's one of the main reasons she does want to come back to the WWE, so that one day they cross paths again. Lucas Brown thinks Liv is the front runner for the 2026 Royal Rumble. Kelly likes Becky's new song but does prefer the other one. And Cal said, did you see Def Rebel got caught stealing lyrics and using AI? I did not. Interesting. Next up, Rusev. Sheamus and Rusev were intentionally given plenty of time on Raw and a bit more weaponry in the attempt to get Rusev more of a reaction. WWE is still concerned about Rusev's promos, as they have been since the day he debuted, which is why of course they paired him with Lana. Some things never change. To compensate, they want to hype up the physical brute element. Though one member of creative is pitching another Sheamus and Cesaro, but this time Sheamus and Rusev. There are also people in creative that are keen on the idea of pairing up Rusev with a voice such as Paul Heyman. That would then mean that Rusev would join Seth Rollins' faction. Physically, I think he very much fits the bill. So I think that could be something that works out. However, when it comes to the Rusev and Sami Zayn pairing that's now being teased, the idea is that they need someone who can ragdoll for Rusev. That's all it is. Charlotte Flair has been stopped from having mic time in front of the fans for a number of weeks in order to allow the Bliss pairing to develop and cheers to begin. Monday was a litmus test for that, to see how the crowd would react with Charlotte Flair when she has a microphone. Would they still boo? Would they still woo? What would they do? Bliss and Flair will now provide the pivot around which the women's tag team title division rebuild begins. We should probably take this moment to do a check-in on all the tag divisions that Triple H has spent the year so far rebuilding. The SmackDown tag division is not just rebuilding, it's rebuilt. In fact, it was already rebuilt before the Wyatt Six stepped into it. I've got to say, the SmackDown tag division is doing wonderful, and the matches are absolutely unmissable, regardless of the teams involved. On the Raw side, there is a lot more work to do. The New Day cannot carry this alone. Judgment Day cannot carry this alone. It's just awkward because we are back in the same position where Judgment Day aren't really offering anything. The women's tag division, however, is by far the most underutilized, with Judgment Day relinquishing the championships to Alexa Bliss and Charlotte Flair. We've seen the Kabuki Warriors now as a tag team. There are tag teams available that they need to start using. Charlotte Flair and Alexa Bliss is believed to be the beginning of something new. Alex says, do you think Mercedes will ever come back to WWE? Yes, I do. And Lucas Brown, thank you very much for following on TikTok. Plenty of people following today. Hopefully you guys like what you're seeing, and we'll see more of you in the near future. Spoiler warning goes live 10 p.m. UK time, Mondays and Fridays. That is 5 p.m. Eastern time. And I try to answer every question we get. There are times when we have more than 100 people in here. We have 95, for example, on YouTube right now. We peaked at about 113. We have quite a few on TikTok compared to where we started, up to 6. We had 7 a moment ago. So we're doing well there as well. Combined, we regularly have more than 100. So we get lots of questions and we try and make sure they are answered as best we can. Ray says, if you could only watch one WWE match, what would it be? I did really like CM Punk versus Gunther. Would probably be Becky Lynch versus Charlotte Flair and the last woman standing, though. Eric says, if WWE turn the Kabuki Warriors heel, it will fail because the fans will not boo the Kabuki Warriors. Rickan says, do you ever see Ambrose coming back to WWE? Ambrose versus Tribal Chief would have been amazing. I suspect he will return for a Hall of Fame induction, and that will be that. He's very, very happy in AEW. Maggie says, I'm still not impressed with men's or women's tag teams. Too much nonsensical booking. Ray says, let me have creative so I can bring back Natalya and give her an IC title run. If you've not yet done so, please consider subscribing on the YouTube side. As I say, we do these shows twice a week. The schedule is just over there on the overlay that you can check out. We also do plenty more that you may well enjoy. So be sure to hit like, be sure to say hi when you first join in. You can lurk if you'd prefer, and be sure that you are subscribed. Noob says, bring in Natty and Maxine, aka the Dungeon Dolls, on television. As much as I like the Kabuki Warriors, time to bring in some new tag teams on TV. Alex said, sad Cena's only got 12 dates left. It's really not many. And Maggie says, I'd like to see Roman versus Gunther at some point. Don't have to rush it. WWE very much have that on their agenda. Liv Morgan. The update that I have is that Liv Morgan is recovering well. The WWE and Liv Morgan have been in continuous discussions and are currently targeting a return around Survivor Series time, though storyline plans might mean that it gets pushed back to the Royal Rumble instead. That genuinely happens all the time, that someone is ready to return by Survivor Series, but because creative needs a little time to build momentum, because storylines for Survivor Series are usually set by Royal Rumble time the year earlier, they do sometimes have to push it back. I wouldn't be surprised if the WWE wait for the Rumble, but Liv Morgan is recovering well, and the intended return at the moment is Survivor Series. As regards the Royal Rumble, I did tell you I was going to say exactly who my firm pick now is. Somebody did catch it. Sami Zayn is now firmly my choice to win the Royal Rumble. He has been promised upon signing his most recent contract that he would be pushed towards the World Championship. He did have the story with Seth earlier in the year, and I do think he is the most obvious candidate, Sami Zayn, to win the Royal Rumble. Alex says Natty didn't get the love she deserved. She didn't get the matches she needed to shine. WrestleFacts says, have you seen Meltzer's story about a possible 2 WrestleManias in 2027? If you're referring to the Saudi Arabia report, that was brought into the chat earlier. Ashley says Natalia is facing Lady... Gonna need help here. The Ladies Flammer and Fabi Apache at Triple Mania on August 16th for the women's title. Welcome, Billy. Good to see you. Kelly says, can't wait for Liv to come back. By then, though, Dom may have moved in to Roxanne. She's not a house. Ryan says, hey, Tom, got in late, so going back to the start. Hope everything is going well. Welcome, Ryan. Good to see you, mate. And Eric says, as regards noob, the Dungeon Dolls are not over to get time. They're the new KC squared. Unless they appear on TV, they won't be able to get over. So it's a catch-22. Marcel says, for the women, who do you think wins the Rumble? At the minute, it's just guesswork. I'm not really sure. Kelly says, Tom, what do you think will be next for Jay? Hard to say. A lot of it does revolve around Roman right now, but his time at the very top has come to an end. As regards Becky Lynch and her brand new theme, she needs to burn it down. What I mean by that is when they changed Seth Rollins' theme, nobody responded to it. And then they brought back the burn it down, which was essentially the moment to say to the crowd, hey, it's Seth, cheer, now. A lot of wrestlers have that. They have that instant tag, that instant recognizable moment, the broken glass. Do you smell what The Rock is cooking? That's what I'm talking about here. An immediate signal of who is coming and how you should react. Becky needs a burn it down. What I will say, though, I've mentioned this a few weeks ago, Becky's Donald Trump impression continues to get more and more obvious. The plan for Becky Lynch versus Nikki Bella originally was a feud that was put together with the intention of a tie-in to Happy Gilmore 2, which was an okay film. Unfortunately, then Nikki Bella's part was cut, so they've had to rewrite the whole feud. Thankfully, Becky Lynch had no problem rewriting a whole promo, running it by Nikki Bella, and in fact, Becky Lynch gave Nikki Bella some attack lines in support of the promo section. Everything was approved, and everyone was happy. We will be touching on Austin Theory in just a moment, head of the table. No, Sid. Rickan says, I got Sammy winning also, but could also see Punk winning. Bear with me for just a moment, guys. I'm going to... sneeze. Maggie says, I like Sammy, but I really don't see him as a main contender or a leading ambassador for the company that's part of the whole package of being champ, not just the wrestling part. I would argue that same thing can be said for Jey Uso. As regards Becky Lynch, Kelly says, I agree, Tom. This new song doesn't have any recognition. Bring back her whoa, 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 do, smoke. Oh. Next. Netflix at current have some concerns with the ratings drop-off that they have seen in the past few months from the WWE, particularly the drop that they've seen from the first show to now, which has been quite extreme even on a global scale. The WWE have tried to explain to Netflix that there is always a drop in interest and viewership at this time of year. I've discussed this before at length. Between WrestleMania and SummerSlam, there is always a lull in interest. People return around SummerSlam as we build to Survivor Series, and then peaks between the Royal Rumble and WrestleMania. So of course, you're not getting the same viewership that you were getting between the Royal Rumble and WrestleMania when wrestling's at its peak. What follows after WrestleMania is wrestling at its worst. This has been the case for decades, and WWE right now are at pains to prove it because Netflix have concerns. Choices like the return of Brock Lesnar and the increase in championship matches on TV that we've seen in the last few weeks are an attempt to get the numbers back up and prove the ebb and flow to Netflix in advance of future years. What's the word? Begins with a C. That means it definitely in compromise. It does begin with a C. In compromise with Netflix, the WWE have offered them a few additional PLEs, which is where Evolution came from. Just trying to boost those numbers and keep things going. As regards ESPN, a $325 million deal has been signed between the WWE and ESPN to host WWE PLEs in the United States of America and in the United States of America only. ESPN believe they'll make a significant profit. WWE do not believe they'll make a significant profit. Netflix are happy enough knowing that they essentially get this for free anyway, because globally, Netflix are able to show those PLEs as part of the deal already in place, and globally is the market that the WWE care most about. In fact, this is kind of one of the main problems that the WWE are having right now under the current administration. Okay? The WWE right now are attempting to put their focus into non-American markets, believing that they've achieved everything they can with the American market and pushing to go further. This is why we've got shows in Paris. This is why we've got shows in Australia. This is why we were supposed to have a show in Mexico. However, the current presidential administration is pressuring the WWE to change tactic and keep everything in-house in America, with one exception: Saudi Arabia. The current administration has no issue whatsoever with shows taking place in Saudi Arabia. Welcome, KJ, mate. Good to see you. Maggie says, I wouldn't have cared if Lesnar ever came back. Can't say I missed him. Miss Awesome Sauce, he says, how true is Meltzer's reporting that Saudi is pushing for a Mania in 2027 and want Rock to headline? It is true. Saudi Arabia are pushing for that. They believe it's a timescale that works for them to build a stadium in place and also to make The Rock available. Kelly says they don't care about us here in the States. We have to watch every darn show on a different channel or platform. The final thing I want to touch on is Austin Theory. The WWE are currently looking at ways to restart the Austin Theory character after his most recent injury. He is currently expected to be out for some time, so the creative team have been told, don't plan anything directly. Don't plan anything for him now. Instead, plan something brand new. Plan a complete rebirth of the character. Don't plan to have him come back and be the same guy. Give him promos that he can announce something brand new, something which we've never seen before. Guys, we've been live for 50 minutes and that is our show. We peaked at 113 viewers on YouTube and we've had plenty of people on the TikTok side as well. I just want to say a huge thanks for everyone who's joined. We've got plenty of new followers and I appreciate all of you being here. In the meantime though, I've been Tom Colohue. You have been fantastic and I'll see you all very soon.